There's only been 2 times in NBA history when the 8th seed reached the NBA Finals: the 2023 Miami Heat and the 1999 New York Knicks. And as a Knicks fan with a very blurry memory of watching that playoff run back in 1999, I still remember how incredible it was, how we all thought they'd win the title that year, which unfortunately didn't happen. In this video, I want to compare that 1999 playoff run to this Miami Heat one, and believe it or not, there's actually quite a number of similarities between these two teams and the narrative surrounding them. Let's take a detailed look. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's begin. Now, to understand how the Knicks reached the finals back in '99, you gotta know the context behind it. It was a lockout-shortened season, and only 50 regular season games were played that year. In the Eastern Conference, the first seed Miami Heat won just 6 more games than the 8th seed New York Knicks. It was quite the balanced playoff bracket. Not to mention, in the year before that, in the 1998 playoffs, the Knicks were the 7th seed and knocked out the 2 seed Miami Heat. During these years from 1997 to 2000, the Knicks and Heat played each other 4 times in the playoffs, with the Knicks winning 3 of those series. They had the Heat's number. So the fact that they eliminated Miami again on a ridiculous Allen Houston jumper, it was surprising, but not that surprising. Plus, the Knicks struggled with injuries for a good portion of this short season, so they were better than what their record indicated. The 1999 Knicks also featured a couple of new faces compared to previous years, in particular Latrell Sprewell. The perception of him at this time was very negative. He just came off an entire season suspension with Golden State after he choked out his coach, PJ Carlesimo. However, prior to that, Spree was an All-NBA player, one of the best shooting guards in the league, but his teams struggled to make the playoffs. So there's no questioning his talent. The question was, does he have the right mindset to win? The acquisition of Sprewell signaled a new direction for the Knicks, as they wanted to go younger and do a quick retool around their aging star, Patrick Ewing. Marcus Camby was another new acquisition, and the 24-year-old center brought an incredible amount of energy and intensity off the bench, and he would be very important later on. The 2023 Miami Heat faced similar issues in the regular season, mainly with injuries. Butler and Hero both missed like 15 to 20 games, and sometimes that's what separates a team from winning 44 games versus 50. Like the '99 Knicks, this Heat team had similar success in the years before. Remember, they were the 1 seed just the year prior, and a few years before that, they reached the NBA Finals with the same core of players. So even if they had a lackluster regular season, this is a team that knows how to win, and they have the experience and the coaching to succeed. For the Knicks, they won 57 games a few years prior, and they were very successful in the playoffs throughout most of the 90s. Basically, both the 23 Heat and the 99 Knicks had a solid foundation already established, and their 8th seed was kind of an anomaly to begin with, due to unfortunate circumstances. They were much better than what their record indicated. Anyway, let's move on to the playoffs. There's a striking similarity in what happened for both of these teams. They both lost a major player. For the Knicks, it was Patrick Ewing. For the Heat, it was Tyler Hero, and to a lesser extent, Victor Oladipo. These losses forced these teams to play differently than what other teams were used to. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at the '99 Knicks. Patrick Ewing got injured in the conference finals, but up until then, he struggled. At the age of 36, Ewing was on the downswing of his career, and despite leading the team in scoring during the season, he was nowhere close to being the player he once was. But due to his presence on the floor, the pace of the game was so slow. They were 24th in pace for the season, and even slower in the playoffs. When the Knicks defeated the Heat, the average pace of that series was a lethargic 80.3. For reference, the slowest team in the 2023 season were the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they were still at 95.7. That's how ridiculously slow that Knicks team was. After a brutal first-round series, the Knicks shockingly swept the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. This was in large part due to the Knicks switching to a much smaller lineup and ran them off the floor. The pace increased to 85.6 and Ewing's minutes dropped from the previous series, going from 34 minutes a game to 27. And it wasn't too long before the Knicks realized they're pretty good when they go small. The Knicks started to give Sprewell a lot more minutes, and they were better. Not only were the Knicks smaller now, but they were better defensively on the perimeter. The Hawks guards Steve Smith and Mookie Blaylock had arguably the worst series for a starting backcourt in NBA history. Very rarely did we see the Knicks play small lineups in the regular season, so for the Hawks, they were not used to seeing this and got swept off the court. Moving on to the conference finals, with Ewing out for the rest of the playoffs, the Knicks fully committed to playing small. The pace increased again to 87.4, and the younger Knicks overwhelmed the older, slower Pacers. While you might think the interior defense would drop off without Ewing, it was the complete opposite. It allowed the young Marcus Camby to play way more minutes, and his energy, his hustle, his defense, he was better than Ewing at this point of his career. So the Knicks actually got better on defense. There's a reason Bill Simmons wrote an entire essay about the Ewing theory, how a team loses a star player and becomes better because of it. In this case, Ewing's shots were getting distributed more amongst their guards, who were better players than him at this point of his aging career. Plus, for a lot of possessions, they would throw the ball to Ewing and he would take like 20 seconds to do a post move, and his efficiency was pretty bad at this point. It was not good offense with him on the floor. Plus, his backup, Camby, was much more suited to run with Sprewell and Houston. With this change of playstyle and being less reliant on his inefficient post scoring, the Knicks became a better team. However, just like the 2023 Heat, their small lineups can only go so far. The Knicks got trounced in the finals by a team that was simply much bigger and better than them, with big men who were more talented than anything the Knicks could muster up. The lack of size was the major reason the Heat lost as well, to a center who they just could not stop. They didn't have the personnel to match up properly. Now, for the 23 Heat, some critics even mentioned the absence of Hero made their defense reach another level. Obviously, they missed Hero's playmaking and scoring. Besides Jimmy, he was their only other reliable playmaker in the season. But it's a bit more nuanced than that. His absence caused the rest of the role players to step up and get more shots. Hero's 17 shots per game were the most on the Heat roster, but he was below average in scoring efficiency this year. At 56.6% true shooting, he was lower than the league average of 58.1%. His shots got spread out amongst their role players. More shots for Jimmy, more shots for Bam too. More catch and shoot opportunities that led to higher percentage looks, so their offense just looked way different. Also, defensively, teams would pick on him, and that's how it went in the previous playoff run. It was a weakness that his opponents took advantage of. The Heat's defense moved like a string. Their zone and their effort was unmatched by any other team in the postseason. Whereas in the regular season, you'd see some lapses in their defense. It's not just Hero to blame, but out of everyone who got major minutes, he had a 115.4 individual defensive rating, whereas his team as a whole had a 113.3 defensive rating. It's kinda like the Ewing theory all over again. The Heat loses the guy who takes the most shots on the team, their game plan changes, and all of a sudden, they're better. For both these teams, the absence of Ewing and Hero forced their respective teams to adapt and change, and in this case, it worked out better for the team. In terms of the strength of their competition, I'd say the Heat definitely had to go through tougher opponents, even if, Giannis was injured for most of that series. But even with an injured Giannis, the Bucks were still favorites to win that series, so it was shocking when they lost. Not just lost, but demolished in 5 games, with the Heat clawing back from double-digit fourth-quarter leads in the final 2 games. They also went through a Knicks team that was much bigger than them, and they were the best rebounding team in the league. Then of course, the Celtics, who prior to the start of the playoffs, they were considered the favorites to win the title. They had the highest net rating in the league, a top 2 offense and top 3 defense. Miami went through a gauntlet of talented teams who all played very differently. Yet they were super well coached, a team where 5 undrafted players got significant playing time, and they overcame their lack of talent through sheer hustle. The 99 Knicks, on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, only 6 games separated the 1st seed from the 8th seed. And in terms of records, there was a lot of parity in the conference. The teams they beat didn't win that many more games than them. Alonzo Mourning and the Heat were certainly the favorites to come out of the East. I mean, he won Defensive Player of the Year, and he made first-team All-NBA, and they had Tim Hardaway, who made second-team All-NBA. That was certainly an impressive victory for the Knicks. But as for the Hawks and Pacers, neither of these teams had anyone who made All-NBA that season. Although the Pacers did reach the finals a year later. In '99, however, the favorites to win the title were all in the West. In particular, the Spurs, Jazz, and Blazers. They had the 3 best records in the league. It was definitely a weaker era in the East compared to the contenders of the West. I'll give the 23 Heat the edge here in terms of difficulty getting to the finals, but the '99 Knicks were the first team to ever do it, so they'll never be forgotten. Both these teams will be remembered forever. Anyway, that's all, folks. How would you compare the 23 Heat to the '99 Knicks? Which team do you think had a more difficult path? And do you see the Heat winning a title in the near future? I guess it depends on their off-season moves, but their window is still open in my opinion. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.